So now we're actually gonna begin. Welcome everyone. Thank you guys so much for being here. Like I said earlier, my name is Will Johnson. I'm a brown African brown male with sharp glasses, with some black and brown glasses. I am wearing a blue polo zip-up shirt. Uh, we're gonna get started. Like I said, this is a place for learning, reflection, and growth. Now, before we get started, I do want to take time out and thank these amazing people who are like, we're a family together and great friends. Before I get started, I want to give a big shout out to our planning committee and for their volunteer, taking the time out. We had some rich conversations. We got together and learned from one another. Also, we made this summit happen. I want to thank a special shout out to Landon, Jamie, Tiffany, Lillian, and a shout out to Vivian and Paul. And a special shout out to my colleague Jolie Robichaud. Um, they has been amazing. I'm excited. Without her, I don't think this would have been possible. So I thank you. So about me, my name is Will Johnson. I work at the Human Development Center as a public information officer. I am a self-advocate and a speaker. I believe in change, leadership, and movement. And this right here is a movement. So I want you guys to really take time and really think about this because this is really a movement for me. Now, what inspired the summit? Recent policy, all of this stuff that's going on. As you may know, the Big Beautiful Bill has affected the community. And a good friend of mine called me a couple of months ago and we spoke about it. And they was feeling a lot of things, emotional, angry, they was feeling hurtful. And I knew at that moment I needed to take a lead on this. So I came to my colleague Jolie and I was telling her like how I was feeling, what I wanted to do, and I wanted to begin this action. I wanted to take lead, and this is the lead on doing this. So the purpose of the summit, we want you to remember you can make change. You have a community. We are stronger when we start to stand together. Always remember, nothing about us without us. This is a 3-day summit. Day one, what's going on? So you're going to be looking to the future and building community. Day two, which is next week, you're going to let's make a plan. So that means you're going to be learning from learning from the past and the advocacy. Day three, we're going to take action. So all the stuff that you learned from day one and day two, you're going to put that into a personal story. You're going to create your own story and you're going to share that with the community, in your community, because it's important. Now, before we get started into everything, I'm going to kick it over to Jolie for some housekeeping rules.
Hi everyone, this is Jolie here. I am purely here, well, to support, and I'm a big fan of Will and all of our speakers, but I'm in the chat. I'm your tech support today. I'm here to help provide greater access. So hit me up in the chat. So you could send me a direct message. I also want to send out some reminders. So if you can, please rename your Zoom profile. And also, you may notice we have some awesome interpreters here today. If you need an interpreter to go with you into a breakout room, please message me to let me know. And go to the next slide. We also have live captioning available through Zoom. So whether you're on your mobile view or your computer view, you will see the More button at the bottom with the three dots. Click that and you'll see the Show Captions button. And then before we get started, I want to give a great big thank you to the New Disabled South for supporting this summit and helping us sponsor the awesome interpreters we have today. So thank you, New Disabled South. And then I'll hand it back over to Will to introduce our first speaker.
Amazing, Joe. Thank you so much for that. So our first presenter and first speaker is Dom Kelly. Dom Kelly is the co-founder, president, and CEO of the New Disabled South. Dom is a life of learning disability advocate, a social justice organization. Dom has been building systems that help community grows and improve in the U.S. South since 2009. So, Dom, you can take it away.
Well, thank you so much, Will. Hi, everyone. My name is Dom Kelly. I'm a white man with dark brown curly hair, wearing a maroon striped shirt, sitting in my office in front of some plants and books and pictures on the wall. I'm based in Atlanta, Georgia, and really, really honored to be here. I'm going to share my screen here if you give me a moment. Again, thank you so much for having me. I am going to talk about disabled voters, our work in New Disabled South, but also just kind of ground us in this moment that we're in, what this year can look like for us as disabled folks, as people who do this work, and and how I see our community continuing to build power at the voting booth and also beyond. So I'll start with a little bit about who I am. I wanted to pick the most emo picture I could find. There it is. I'm a husband. I am a father to a 2.5-year-old. I've been working, I've been organizing for a long time, since 2009, and I have a disability called cerebral palsy. I am actually a triplet, one of a set of triplets, and my brothers and I were all diagnosed with CP when we were a year old. And I was kind of thrown into this world, this disability rights advocacy world when I was 4 years old. My mom kind of started to get involved and wound up, changing careers, making this her job, and my first experience in this world was at 4. My mom put my brothers and I in front of a room full of high school seniors and said, basically, like, okay, go tell your story, good luck. And essentially what she was trying to do, and what she said, is that she wanted us to learn how to tell our story before someone else tried to tell it for us. And that was a really profound experience for me. And so I think I got bit by the bug, so to speak, at a very early age, and found my passion in this work. But I've had a really interesting journey and career, and all different twists and turns in my career. I had a career in music professionally for a long time. My brothers and I, my fraternal triplet brother, he died when we were 6 years old. I have a younger brother who's 3 years younger, and so my younger brother, my identical brother, and myself, we started a band when I was 12 years old, and started to tour. I think I was 11, actually, and we started to tour when I was like 14, and wound up being homeschooled for the rest of our high school career, and put out a lot of records and did a lot of fun things in my career in music. So I'm like kind of sort of slowly coming out of music retirement. I'm doing a little bit of music again on the side, which is fun. But my passion is really in organizing. I founded New Disabled South. I have degrees in all sorts of things. And I'm a writer. I have worked on political campaigns. I've done a lot of things. Who I am, though, is really someone who's committed to liberation for disabled people, for all oppressed people. Um, uh, and I consider myself a student of disability justice. It's I think, a lifelong learning journey for me, and I feel honored to get to be a part of the movement. So here's just some pictures to like show you a little bit who I am. There's my wife and I. We got to go to Ireland. I'm a dual Irish citizen as well, and so I did a speaking thing in Ireland. We did that together. It's me and my triplet brothers in the top left here. It's me recording on the bottom left with Joan Baez. It's my daughter in the top right, and that's me speaking at a conference in the bottom right. So I'll just tell you a little bit about New Disabled South. And this is, I think we actually are about to be a 30-person team. But this is on the screen, you can see most of our team here. I think we've actually added a number of people since this picture was taken, but this was our staff retreat early last year. We did a hybrid retreat. Not everyone could make it in person, but we went to Berlin and did our staff retreat and went to a conference, and it was a really great experience. And everybody on our team identifies as disabled and neurodivergent, chronically ill, and we have a really incredible team. So I'm very proud of the team that we built. So our work is really focused on how do we improve the lives of disabled people in the South and build strong disability justice and rights movements. And we're working toward a vision where liberation and justice for all disabled people is achievable in our lifetime, I should add. Just very, very briefly, we do a lot of things. We do organizing, base building. We do original research, really invest in trying to tell stories through data, and also tell stories, period, of our community. So we do a lot of narrative change work. And then we also are really invested in making sure that our community is not left behind as tech advances, despite a lot of ethical and moral concerns with AI. Really trying to make sure that our community is not left behind, and also make sure that technology is accessible. So it's a little bit of a little part of our work as well. Just a few very, very brief wins to share with you. We did a campaign a few years ago in Georgia to get an increased investment in Georgia's home and community-based services waivers, and did a plain language messaging campaign statewide in Georgia. We were in all the major media markets, on TV, radio, all of these things, and we're able to mobilize people to make this happen, and got a historic investment in care in Georgia that legislative session. We released a report on Georgia's home and community-based services waiver waiting list, proving what we had, what we knew but didn't have data to show, that like HCBS waiting lists are a racial justice issue, that like we can't talk about it without talking about the racial disparities, and we were able to prove that with the data and ruffle some feathers in the state of Georgia as well. And we're actually doing this report in states across the South as we speak, and we'll be rolling those out very soon. We released a platform, built and released a platform, a tool that translates bills policy into plain language, and it's called the Plain Language Policy Dashboard. It's currently down. We're rebuilding it, but that's our plain language dashboard. So anyway, that is us, a little bit about us. Just a couple highlights. We are launching the Black Disability Institute. It's a think tank storytelling think tank storytelling initiative housed in our research department, telling the stories of Black disabled folks, started by my co-founder, Casey Amon Wilson, and our chief research officer, Kiana Jackson. Growing and expanding our dashboard, we're dropping it's actually not called that anymore. It's a curbside voting bill in Georgia to get curbside voting, which we don't have. We have that's moving through session this year, and we're going to be dropping that in some other states, and we're continuing to expand our team. Okay, that is us in a nutshell. So, why disabled voters? Why are we talking about voting today? Um, uh, in this political moment, I think it can be, for me at least, can be quite challenging to think about elections, to think about how elections can change things. And I am somebody who's worked in movement for a long time, but also in politics and electoral politics. I also worked in voting rights for a little bit, for a few years, and I know that it is really, really difficult to see change through voting, and I get somewhat jaded by our electoral system, and am in this moment transparently, and I see it as a tool, as one tool for how we can make change in this country, in our local communities, in our states. And so we at New Disabled South, we organize year round, and we don't necessarily focus simply on elections. We do work around elections. We also have a 501c4 arm called New Disabled South Rising. And so we do most of our
Hey, Dom, I think you froze.
did you lose me? I'm back.
Pause.
Okay. Apologies. Uh, so our I think what I was saying is we've seen that disabled voters are a critical part of our electorate, and that we can't change systems, that we can't elect people who can actually represent us without disabled people, and that is one of the things that we're trying to show our elected officials, those who work on campaigns, our party systems, that is the truth. So, just some stats to kind of highlight. In 2020, 17.7 million disabled people voted. In 2022, 15.8 million disabled people voted. And that is, I think, a really critical stat, because that's a lot of people, and that is just people that we know about. There are, as everyone here knows, many more disabled people in this country than I think we have the data to prove. Um, we hear the 1 in 4 number in the U.S., but I would, and without having the hard numbers and the real actual data, I would guess we have half of this country is disabled, if not more, especially since the COVID-19 pandemic started. And we've seen those numbers increase. So, again, that's just the data that we have for sure, but the reality is that disabled people are much larger numbers than we know. We know that attempts to suppress votes disproportionately impact disabled people. Oftentimes, those voter suppression tactics are used, and we've seen them used in ways that will do things like create longer lines for people to wait in. It makes it more difficult to get a vote by mail, an absentee ballot, to return an absentee ballot. We've seen in states across our country, including in Louisiana, bills that criminalize receiving assistance with voting. Those are just some of the examples, and we've also seen in different states, and I can use Georgia as an example, an attempt to disenfranchise voters of color on the backs of disabled people. And what I mean by that is that in in a number of places, there have been attempts to close down polling places in primarily black counties, and I'm thinking of Georgia in particular. In 2018, we had a county in Georgia that our now governor, but then Secretary of State, who was overseeing his own election, attempted to close down 9 out of 11 polling places in a single county that was primarily black county, because, as they said, they were not ADA compliant, compliant with the Americans with Disabilities Act. And thankfully, we were able to stop that from happening because people said, so you're just going to close them down instead of make them accessible. And it caused, a lot of, there was a lot of anger and a lot of, there was a reaction. But this has happened and flown under the radar across our country, particularly across the South. So voter suppression impacts disabled voters and disproportionately, and as we know, it is often targeted at voters of color, and disabled people are sort of used as scapegoats. And of course, any attempt to harm voters of color, that includes disabled people, because disabled people are a part of every community. We know going into this year, this midterm election year, that disabled voters are going to vote in historic numbers. We've seen these numbers continue to increase in every election cycle. Unfortunately, though, there is a lack of data to and specific outreach to disabled voters on a broad scale. That is large part because if we are doing voter outreach and looking at things like a voter file, there's no data in the voter file to tell us which voters are disabled. So if we're talking about organizations who do large scale voter contact, canvassing operations, they can't go and pull a list of disabled voters. They can pull lists based on other demographic information. They can pull lists, based on issues that people care about, but you can't actually go and get, any information on who identifies as disabled, and that makes it really hard to be able to actually target messaging to disabled voters and specifically reach disabled voters in that way. What also makes it very challenging is that only 16% of polling places in this country are accessible. And the barriers to voting in person have only increased. And we as in this country has made it much harder to vote absentee since the 2020 election. So as I mentioned, there's been criminalization of assistance in voting. There have been increased ID requirements, limits to ballot drop boxes. These we've seen across the South. As I said, long lines are an issue. A lack of poll worker training is a significant issue that we've seen in how poll workers come to understand, the spectrum of disability and the various access needs that disabled people have. And that has impacted disabled people's ability to turn out to vote. And when we talk about, long lines, poll worker training, barriers to absentee voting, all of those things have become even more barriers since the COVID-19 pandemic started, especially for folks who can't leave their homes still because they would, if they get COVID or any other airborne virus, it could be detrimental and very dangerous to them. So that this has made it even more difficult for disabled people to vote, and disabled people are still voting in record numbers. So imagine if we were able to tear down these barriers and make voting something that anybody can access. Another couple of thoughts around disabled voters is that oftentimes, if we're talking about ballot measures or ballot questions, while they're legally supposed to be written in plain language, they're often not, and they are written in ways that are intended to be confusing. And even if you do not have an intellectual disability, most of these ballot questions are confusing to the majority of people, and often that is an intentional thing. And so one of the things that we have done is similar to our plain language policy dashboard. We built a tool that translates ballot measures into plain language as well. And last election cycle had a lot of success in pushing that out and across all of our states and making sure that that disabled voters and also really any voter, disabled or non-disabled, could understand what they were voting for, and the question being asked of them. So that has definitely been a barrier and something that I think is very solvable. And then finally, as everyone here knows, we have thousands upon thousands of disabled people who are in institutional settings, nursing facilities, other congregate settings, and oftentimes, and actually, I would not just oftentimes, most of the time, when we have organizations, canvassers, campaigns talking to voters, they're not going to these places where there are voters, and so oftentimes those folks don't have the same access to information. They don't have accurate, reliable info on how to vote, on when to vote. And especially considering, the criminalization of voter assistance, that has made it even harder for folks in those settings to be able to vote in a way that's accessible. So targeting voters in those settings is a really crucial strategy and something that we've done the last few years and will continue to do in our work. So it's a little bit of just like the barriers, why disabled voters are important. I'm going to show you a little ad that we put out during the presidential election in 2024. Let me just make sure that I'm sharing my sound here. Okay.
Let's be honest. A majority of the time, people with disabilities are not being seen.
We're ignored.
And overlooked. See what I mean?
But if you're in office or running for office, know this.
There's 61 million of us.
And we see you.
We see you when our medical bills arrive.
We see you when we're going to work.
Or class.
And we really see you when we vote.
That's right. Disabled people vote.
Did we mention that there's 61 million of us?
And not to brag or anything, but we're pretty good at getting what we need.
We won't be forgotten.
Pushed to the side.
Or neglected.
So if you want our vote,
take a good look around.
Listen to us.
Talk to us.
Support us.
Fight beside us.
or get out the way.
So that was a lot of fun. We partnered with some friends on that. I wasn't supposed to be in it, and then like someone fell through and they begged me to be in it. So it was a little uncomfortable for me, but I mean, it was uncomfortable just because I don't know. It's not my jam necessarily to do, acting, but in any case, that was our ad, and we targeted that ad to disabled voters, but we also were that ad was in states across the country, but we also were very uh, intentional about targeting that toward people who work on campaigns, who work at voting organizations. We like invested heavily in LinkedIn and targeted folks who worked in that sector on campaigns and things like that, which was a fun strategy. And I think we got a lot of good feedback and we heard from electeds because that was really who we were talking to. So I have like a couple more slides. So when I think about voting, I think about what we have control over. And this is something this is a tool that I use myself when I'm thinking about how to problem solve, how to do some of this work that we do. It's something that I did when I started New Disabled South, and it was just an idea, and it was literally just me. And so I love this this sphere of influence, or sphere of control. So for me, when I think about our systems and our culture, I think about really big issues, right? I think about like the fact that it's 68 degrees today here in Atlanta and it's January and we're, destroying our planet and not doing anything about climate change. I want to solve climate change. Like I want to do it. And I would love to invest all of my time and energy into solving climate change myself, figuring out what that solution is. But I know that climate change is something I'm concerned about broadly, but me as one individual person, that would take a lot, and it's near impossible, right? I would have to get every single corporation, every single billionaire, every single country on earth to like change everything, right? And like that as one person is not something that I can do. So that's in my sphere of concern. In my sphere of influence is like, what are things I can influence? Well, I know a lot of people, and I have things that I do to in my own life to make sure that people know the facts about climate change, to know how climate change happens, to talk to elected officials about climate change, to talk to them about how climate change impacts disabled people. So my sphere of influence, that's like, who can I influence? What can I influence to create change? And that helps me get a little bit like smaller rather than so large. And then when I go a little deeper, I think about my sphere of control. And my sphere of control is really what can I do right now, today, to be a part of the solution. And so for me, that's like, it used to be, it still is recycling, but who knows if we're actually, I don't even know if we're actually still recycling things in this country, but, it's like, can I take public transportation? Can I, how can I decrease my carbon footprint? There are things in my control that I can do. And that helps me get to a really like tangible solution. That's how I got to like the strategy for New Disabled South. It was like, I had these big things I want to solve in this world, big things. And I said, what's in my control? And in my control, it was like, I actually can like start a thing, right? Like I can start a coalition. That was really how it started. Like, how would I do that one thing that is in my control, which is start a coalition. And then I grew from there. So I think about the same with voting. It's like, we have these big issues that we care about and we want to solve. So many of these big issues we can't do ourselves. Who can I influence? And then what's in my control? Voting is one thing that is in my sphere of control. It is one thing that I can do that won't necessarily solve the problem itself, but it's a tool to use to help solve the problem. So that's kind of how I think about voting. And then when I think about voting and And I think about how we change our systems, how we change our country, how we change our world. So much of it is about dreaming new possibilities and making them real. That's actually one of our values at New Disabled South. They're on our website. And disability justice is about dreaming. It's about dreaming about a world that doesn't exist for us as disabled people. And so when I go to the ballot box, when I vote, when I talk about voting, I I tell people and I think about myself, what's the kind of world I want to live in? What's the kind of country or the kind of city that I want to live in? And who reflects that dream? Who reflects that value? Who can co-govern with me? Because when I vote, I don't think about, I'm going to elect the person that's going to do it all. I think about co-governance, right? Like I, as a constituent and a voter, will be holding that person accountable. I will be making sure that they answer to my community, that they do what they say they're going to do, right? So I have a responsibility to, as well, to co-govern, to hold them accountable. But that is rooted in dreaming. Who can help make that dream come true? Who will get us one step closer to that? And that to me is a big reason why I vote. Because I dream of a world that my daughter can live in that I don't, that I haven't lived in. And this is one way to do that. And so I really like this exercise, and this is what I'm going to close with. So if you are able to, and you would like to, would love for you to close your eyes for a second. No pressure if you don't want to, if you can't. But if you are able to and would like to, close your eyes or look forward or just be present, and would love for you to imagine our communities, our disabled community, our physical community, whatever that is, in 5 years, in 25 years, 100 years, 500 years, and just think about what that looks like. What's that dream? I've gotten the opportunity to learn from two movement elders, Norma Wong and Mia Birdsong, who both talk about the long generational arc of humanity, and what we do now matters for that long generational arc, and that's what we should be organizing for. So when we think about generations from now, that 100 years, 500 years, what does it feel like in this moment for you to be a part of creating that future? If you think about this beautiful world that we want to see, what does it feel like to think I was a part of creating that? And then what does it feel like to win? We vote because we want to win. We want to win liberation for our communities. We want to win rights for our communities. We want to win this world that we deserve. What does it feel like to have that and to win? Or to think about our children, our grandchildren, our great-grandchildren, that they get to have that's winning. And then what does it feel like to thrive while winning? What does it feel like to have all of our needs met and win and see that world that we dream about? And that is why I think about voting as a tool. It's one tool toward winning, toward dreaming of those new possibilities and making them real, and creating this better world for not just ourselves now, but the long generational arc of humanity for generations ahead of us. It's one way that we can do it. It's one tool we have in our toolbox until we have a new system, until we have a new government, until we have something different. It's one way that we do that. So I thank you very much, and I think this is my Q&A time, so I'm happy to answer any questions, and just very honored that you had me. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Dom. That was incredible. I really loved that idea you talked about the long generational arc for humanity. Like one of my favorite quotes when we think about like we want more trees around, and when's the best time to plant a tree was yesterday. So that was really powerful to me. So we only have a few minutes to go into the Q&A before the breakout group. So I have a couple questions to ask you from the chat. So first we have a comment from Jakeel. Jakeel says, a question later would be with the USPS having now changed their postmark regulations, which has large-scale implications for those receiving services which require things by mail. How would this, I'm sorry, how would this dissuade mail-in ballots, which aids on accessibility for many? Basically, they changed the rules where the day you send something in the mail is not the official date it is marked as. It was changed to when they process it, which could greatly differ from sent date.
Yeah, this is something that we are trying to tackle right now. I think this is going to this is this is voter suppression 101. This is a, a tactic used in a non explicit way to make it harder for people to vote. So yeah, it's going to be confusing for voters. It changes what voters have known. Um, uh, and so I think it's going to require for like those of us who do this work to have to educate people on when they need to send their ballot by, what that means for when your ballot will be received or will be postmarked, or whatever it is based on the various laws in the state, or I think sometimes it's even goes by county, at least in Georgia it does. So yeah, this is going to make it really difficult for advocacy organizations. It's going to make it critical for us to have accurate information to educate people, and yeah, it's gonna be really difficult for people who rely on mail-in voting. And I think if we start that work now, rather than August or September, and start educating people, we can reach as many people as possible, so they know. But it has to start now.
Mhm. Okay, next question is from Maria. What are some first steps you recommend for advocates or allies to support voter access for the disability community here in Louisiana?
It's a great question. I think that a first step is to talk to people in your lives, uh, about voting, but also how the barriers that disabled people face when voting. I think the average person doesn't think about it, right? The average person is like, I'm going to show up on election day, or I'm going to vote in person early, or whatever it is, and they just show up, they do it, and move on. I think most people don't understand that it's not a system that is set up for disabled people, and so I think the more that you can gather resources and data and information, and then talk to people about it, educate people about it, that means I think that we can get more people in our broad coalition of people who can then be advocates, and who can call things out when they're wrong, or call out our elected officials for making it harder. So we just need to expand our tent, and that starts, I think, by us really talking to people in our communities.
Amen. Next question is, what's the biggest misconception today, in your opinion, of the abilities of people with disabilities? That's from Sing and Lisa.
Yeah, there's so many misconceptions. I think what comes to mind is that disabled people, that we have everything we need because we have the Americans with Disabilities Act, and I think that that's like any of us who have a disability, or are have a family member or friend or whoever who are like really in the know. I think we all know that that's a load of crap. That the ADA is the floor, not the ceiling. And so that is not necessarily about people with disabilities, but I think it coincides with this idea that we're a monolith, right? That you have the ADA, you have these basic, we've got accessible toilets now, we've got ramps in buildings, so you're good. And it's like, no, we're actually talking about a very wide spectrum with a lot of different access needs. And so I think people don't fundamentally understand what disability is, and don't understand access, and don't understand that the ADA was and is great, and there is so much more that we need. And that's something, a conversation I have every other day with funders, with partners, people who aren't in this work or this world. And it requires a lot of education.
Great. That's actually, let me pause for a second. Thank you. Sorry, Will and I are in the same room and audio could be tricky. But that's a great segue to our next question from Lillian, who would like to know how you define disability. Because they liked when you discussed the idea that a quarter of people are disabled is an underestimate, but also know there's a lot of different definitions of what disability even is, even within our own community, which makes it so hard to get numbers on the community.
Yeah, I don't know if you'll like this answer, but I think disability is a very personal a very personal thing. So if we're going by the ADA, it is extremely wide. I'm trying to think of like something that would be like diabetes is considered a disability. Substance misuse disorder is a disability. Being in recovery from substance misuse disorder is a disability. Cancer, there's like a wide asthma, because of the way that the ADA defines disability, it's a very wide spectrum. And in that vein, I think that it's how I define it is that it's a very personal thing, right? We can talk about the like legal definition, but disability as an identity, as a label, like that is very personal. And so to me, it is disability is like if you identify as having a disability, you have a disability. And I think like if we're talking about data, usually they'll use questions like, do you have trouble walking upstairs, or do you have trouble doing day-to-day tasks? And I think that's where we get maybe data that is not entirely doesn't tell the full picture, because that's not the experience of everybody. I think neurodivergence is included. I think chronic illness of all kinds are included. I think mental illness, mental health disabilities are included. And one of the things I despise the most about I love our community, and I really despise the gatekeeping that happens around disability. And I'm a wheelchair user, so I'm more disabled than you, or whatever. It's like, no, it's a very wide spectrum, and I think there is less gatekeeping now. And if we are to get an accurate number and then like paint the accurate picture, I think we need to, as a community and as people who are connected to the community, need to be able to be a lot more open and broad about that, and really like leave it to the person to say, that they have a disability. And also, last thing I'll say on that is, even if somebody has like what we would all clearly define as a disability, they may themselves not identify as having a disability. And sometimes that's cultural. So there's various reasons why. And so that's part of the reason why I think it gets hard to get like a really full number as well. But in that regard, in our organizing, we're not, I mean, I, as a person, am always like, you're one of us. Come on. Like, and a lot of people are like, I don't feel that way. And so we kind of like focus on the issue. We focus on, where our connections lie rather than the label. And I think that it's something I think about a lot in terms of how we tell the story through data. And I don't have the full answer about how we get an accurate number, but that's kind of where I'm thinking about it.
Nice. Well, thank you again so much, Dom. There's so many great questions in the chat that don't have time for, so I encourage everyone to take a look at those questions and try to answer the ones that you may have knowledge about. But before we let you go, Dom, I do want to ask how, and this is specifically from Charlotte, how can people get more involved in New Disabled South and New Disabled Rising?
Yes. So you can go on our website. There's a sign up form to get involved. We send out like volunteer opportunities, mobilization opportunities. We're actually just rebuilding our entire website, and we'll have a lot more once we roll that out. So, like, please sign up for our email list, our general one, and the Get Involved, and we'll have a lot of opportunities. You can follow us on all the socials and everything. And also, please feel free to shoot me an email if I didn't get to answer your question. I'm happy to respond. And you might need to be patient with me because my inbox is absurd. But yes, I would love to answer anyone who didn't get their question answered. But yeah, please, newdisabledsouth.org is where you can sign up.
Thank you, Dom.
Thank you so much.
Our breakout group, that was a lot. Great information. So within this breakout group, this is dreaming of new possibilities. And I have some reflection questions on that. So the reflection questions are going to be after listening to Don speak, how are you feeling?
Pause to reflect. What does dreaming of new possibilities mean to you? How can you take action toward these new possibilities? Why do you think disabled voters matter in elections? And how can you be the voice for your community?
All right. Welcome back. Like Jolie says, we're gonna talk about community and mutual aid. Mutual aid is when people help each other meet their needs. Instead of one person doing all the helping, everyone shares what they can share. Um, let's see. This could mean sharing food, rides, money, times, or skills. It also means neighbor helping neighbors, especially during hard times. Now we have a panel of Building Care Network with Louisiana Mutual Aid groups. And who's going to be facilitating that panel is Lillian DeJohn. Lillian is a coordinator for the Louisiana Youth Leadership Forum. They are also a good friend of mine that I'm so happy to have in my life. Um, they're also a part of the Speak Out Stand Up Summit. As you guys know, they was a part of the planning committee, and I'm just happy to do some amazing work with her. Take it over, Lily.
All right. Thanks, Will. Well, welcome everyone. I'm really excited to see everyone's faces today. I'm excited to be able to build community with you guys. I'm excited to be able to have these discussions with you guys because as we all know, times are tough, right? And so during some of the planning committee meetings, while we were discussing some of the topics that we wanted to cover, mutual aid came up because, we're in a time where there's a lot of uncertainty with, the current administration. And we had this question of, okay, in the absence of government support, what can our community do? And the answer was mutual aid, right? We can help each other, we can support each other, and we can come together as communities to provide that support. And so first off, I'd like to start by introducing our panelists today. I'm just here to make sure the discussion goes smoothly and that we have a good time. I want our focus to be on our amazing panelists today. So first we have Miss Rochetta. She is originally from Ruleville, Mississippi. She moved to Louisiana in 2003 to attend McNeese State University and has been here ever since. She is the founder, director, and CEO of the Vessel Project Louisiana, which is a small mutual aid and environmental justice organization that assists our most vulnerable community members with bill assistance, food, emergency shelter, and more. Her organization has also sponsored several local community events and organizations such as Southwest Louisiana Center for Health Services, Juneteenth Festival, Black Men Wear Suits, the Fellowship Breakfast, Southwest Center for Health Services, the Zeta Ameki of Lake Charles Walk with a purpose for pediatric heart awareness, Washington Marion High School Educators Rising Program, Humbry Fondell Beta Club, Molo Middle School Beta Club, Westlake High School, Louisiana Middle School Cheerleaders, and many more. She's also the co-founder and co-director of the Gulf Fossil Finance Hub, where she tracks the money that finances fossil fuel pollution in low-income, predominantly Black communities, and in turn, she educates and empowers community members to demand that the banks defund fossil fuels and invest in communities instead. Rochetta is an award-winning, internationally known environmental justice advocate and have spoken on stages nationally and abroad, including Egypt, Canada, Dubai, Malaysia, Japan, and Vienna, championing for Black, Indigenous, and other people of color and their right for clean air, clean water, sustainable communities that are not overburdened by pollution. She is an author, having written several op-eds and think pieces, and has been honored and featured in Essence magazine as a hometown hero. She holds a bachelor's degree and master's of science from McNeese State University, master of philosophy and criminal justice from Walden University, and is currently a PhD candidate at Walden University. She is a member of several organizations, including Delta Sigma Theta Sorority, National Association of University Women, McNeese State University Black Alumni, and she leads fellow alum for Power Coalition of Equity and Justice. She sits on several boards, including People's Justice Council, Lake Area Regional Business Chamber of Commerce, and participatory grant decision-making for High Fund for Equity and Justice. She is a mom of 6 and grandmother of 1. Her children are who she's trying to make the world a better place for, and she truly believes that no one is good until we are all good, and proves daily through her giving heart and philanthropy. Okay, we are so excited to have you here. Thank you so much for being here with us to have this conversation. I'd like to introduce Jessica Michaud next. So Jessica Michaud is She is a wife and mom of 4 who lives in southern Louisiana. Her identical twin boys both had tracheostomies, utilized ventilators, oxygen, and G-tubes. Having twins with medical complexities and disabilities thrust Jessica into the disability community. With the knowledge and experience from her bachelor's degree in social work to help, she founded Trach Mamas of Louisiana. She currently works with disability access solutions and disaster preparedness relief, but also runs Trach Mamas full-time. And Trach Mamas is, Jessica, can you give us a one-sentence blurb about Trach Mamas real quick?
We provide support to families with children with tracheostomies. We also do disaster relief and preparedness for all of the community, the disability and aging community, from pediatric to geriatric. And we advocate for anyone with disabilities and complex medical needs.
Thank you, Jessica. You do so much that I felt like I might butcher it if I tried to put it in one sentence. So I figured I'd just toss it to you. And lastly, we have Leo. So Leo is a Mexican native who has called Lafayette, Louisiana his home since the age of 7. He currently works as a housing specialist with ARCH, which is the Acadiana Regional Coalition on Homelessness and Housing, where he focuses on securing external resources to help individuals achieve permanent housing. Beyond his professional work, Leo is deeply engaged in community service. As a volunteer of Festival International on the merchandise team, he became aware of the significant surplus of food and waste that followed festivals. So this experience inspired the creation of Food, which is Feeding Others, Outreach and Distribution, which is a community-driven initiative that he co-founded in collaboration with local partners. So Food works to reduce food insecurity and food waste through community fridges and partnerships with restaurants and organizations. This initiative was recently funded by the 24-Hour Citizen Project to expand its network of community fridges and strengthen sustainable food access efforts. In his personal time, Leo enjoys hiking, immersing himself in nature, reading, and researching topics such as food waste and regenerative farming. Leo is also invited to my family's next prairie bird, because apparently he's also very into fire, like my people are. So at the heart of Leo's work is a commitment to education and empowerment. He believes immigrants are vital to the strength, maintenance, and growth of communities, and he strives to ensure individuals are informed of their rights and equipped to advocate for the resources that they deserve. So all in all, we have a phenomenal panel, and we're going to have a phenomenal discussion on mutual aid. So thank you all for being here. And the first question that I want to ask to our panel is, what does mutual aid mean to you as an individual? And I'll leave the floor open for whoever wants to start us off.
This is Jessica. I think mutual aid means giving back what you've gotten. It's hard to feel like you can be useful in a tangible way. So any form of giving back, whether it's support, just peer support, or physical items.
Yeah, with the Vessel Project, hi everybody, it's Rashida. With the Vessel Project of Louisiana, one thing that we always talk about is Maslow's hierarchy of needs and how many times when we're on the front lines and we're fighting for justice or we're faced with any type of crises or emergency situation, we automatically assume that that particular thing that's happening is the only thing that's happening in a person's life. So if there's a hurricane, we assume that we're going to respond to this hurricane, this current disaster, when many times the people who are most impacted are people who have several different crises happening all at one time. But we assume that because they have this hurricane that happened, that we just need to get them out of that crisis, right? Like the hurricane happened, we need to get people to shelter. We bring in some bottled water, we bring in some non-perishable food items, and then 2 or 3 days later we leave and we leave them to figure everything out. When in reality, people were already struggling for food, struggling to pay bills, struggling with childcare, struggling with disabilities and all of these other things that are compromised because of an added disaster. So with Vessel Project, we try to make sure that people's most emergency need is met, not by assuming what the need is, but by communicating with people to allow them to tell us what is your emergency need? How can we help you in your current situation? Because mutual aid is not a handout, it's not charity. It is providing what you have to meet someone else's need. And in turn, when you need something, then you are provided with that need that you have. We believe that mutual aid is essential to building resilient communities. A lot of times we just give people the term resilient. You're so resilient because you faced that hurricane. Nobody wakes up in the morning and say, I want to be resilient today. That's not a badge people want to wear. You're not being resilient because you want to be, you're being resilient because you have to be in order to survive. But sometimes we don't have all of those tools that are needed to be resilient. So if you haven't eaten, if you haven't drank water, we know that those are essential tools. But sometimes we don't think about things like a child may need their asthma pump that may have gotten left in that house that was destroyed by that hurricane. And then to go and get that assistance, you may need a birth certificate. You may need a social security card. You might need a driver's license. Some of those things that we don't think about, that's what we try to provide with Vessel Project, catching the things that kind of slip through the net that larger organizations don't think about when they're sending in, cases of water and packs of noodles. We try to make sure that we're meeting those real needs that people, um, that they say that they need. And sometimes you do that by giving money, direct cash assistance, so that people can meet their own needs.
Yeah, I'm gonna piggyback on Mr. Rochetta. Mutual aid for me, and starting with food itself, I think it's just been a collaborative effort, right, of bringing in different organizations that want to collaborate within our surplus food, and specifically, and I'm going to talk about just food in general itself. Whenever it came back to surplus food, it was just not through the Festival International, but other organizations that wanted to collaborate, church faith churches, and other organizations that want to come together. We share the like-minded values and just environmental justice in itself, right? Because a lot of this food, if it doesn't get distributed back out to the community, where does it end up? It ends up in the landfills, right? Creating methane gas. So we want to make sure that we create that connection with other organizations and not reinvent the wheel. So I wanted to make sure that I wasn't doing that before starting food itself. So we also partner up with Lafayette Community Fridge, which was already established. However, the realm of how they do things is a little bit different, but our values and our it's still similar as well. So bringing all those organizations that we have around here in the Lafayette area, I think brought this food organization to where it is now, and it continues to grow. But it's part of a collaborative effort, right? We have to collaborate together to continue bringing all these resources that are out there for people by education as well, because I've seen the lack of education. I've seen how my impacted communities don't have the resources. They're there. They're just the lack of education that is not being provided to us or has been kept from us as well. So mutual aid has been really important for me in working together with other organizations here in the Lafayette area to bring at the education part of it as well.
Thank you. Yeah, I think education is so important, especially and even just education on what organizations to reach out to in the first place. Because I know like for my family, it was game changing when we learned about Trach Mamas of Louisiana, right? Because that was such a resource. So like when Miss Rochetta said, okay, it's not charity because there's that mutual give back and forth. I know that we've donated tube supplies to Trach Mamas, and then whenever we were in need, Trach Mamas gave back to us. And so that's really the essence of that mutual aid is that community building, that collaboration, and that education as well of like, hey, there's someone out there for you. You're not alone. Maybe your bills are coming in, you don't have enough money, or your medical supply is falling through, or you're low on food. There's someone out there, and they have your back. So I think this leads perfectly into our next question, which is, can we explore a little bit more about how mutual aid empowers our communities? And I'm going to toss this to Leo first.
The way it has impacted our communities, or just in general, a mutual aid, I would start with Arch, where I work at. It's brought it's impacted me personally, and because just going into this, not knowing and being very new into just being of service, I think it's impacted me personally in a way that I can see that there are people out there, like you're saying, there are people out there that want to help and that are willing to help, right? Especially in the dark times that we're living in, political times right now. Now more than ever, we need to come together. Now more than ever, we need to know that we got each other's back, that we are there for each other, right? No one's free until everybody is free, right? So I wanna make sure that mutual aid for me continues to be about education. Education has been lacking in low poverty areas specifically, and in impacted community areas and Black African community areas. So for me, mutual aid has been just that educational factor that we just need to continue to get out there with collaboration of other organizations.
Yeah, thank you for that, Leo. I think whenever we foster mutual aid, it strengthens community connections and support. And I'll just use myself as an example. So I've been had Vessel Project for it'll be 5 years in February. But even before then, I was known as a community outreach specialist, community organizer. I've done all the things. But in having Vessel Project, so many people call and they ask for things that we may think are simple. For example, I've had a family who's called and she asked me, could we purchase a can of Raid, which is, roach spray. And I asked her, did she have a, a problem with roaches in her low income apartment? And she told me yes. And so that led to me talking to the landlord and uncovering like this whole thing where they were living in these unhealthy conditions in these apartments and the landlord wasn't taking care of it. And we were able to get that issue fixed for them. She couldn't have called, some of the bigger organizations and asked for something that simple because they have these complex systems of the way that they provide assistance. They have the funding for, to pay rent or to pay light bill assistance, but they can't buy a loaf of bread. They can't buy a can of roach spray. They can't, buy a pack of baby diapers when their baby needs those diapers right then. And then a lot of times with these programs, you have to get on a waiting list, or you have to call on a certain day, or you have to have certain documentation. And then there's language barriers. You have to prove you're a citizen. You have to, they ask you all these questions. I've gotten people who call me and ask, do you fund abortions? Do you fund undocumented citizens? And for Vessel Project, we don't list what we fund. We never list who we help. There's never a time where you're gonna go somewhere and find these are all the people that have been helped by Vessel Project. We don't take government grants. We don't take local or state grants. We're funded directly through crowdsourcing and through private donations because we want to be able to help those people who cannot get the traditional assistance. Those are the people who need the most help. And so with that said, and using my own situation and just the amount of people we've helped, and on December 16th I lost my son, and I just shared this with the breakout group. My son was 19 years old. He got diagnosed with epilepsy at 17, and for 2 years we have fought. On December 16th he had a seizure and he had a heart attack and he passed away. And immediately while I was in that hospital room, and they were asking all these questions because you have to answer these questions immediately, the people that I was thinking about were people that I've assisted before that I knew could assist me in my time. So somebody that I assisted, they own a funeral home. I called her. She came, no questions asked. For the repast, all of the food that came from the repast were people from the community bringing in food because they've received assistance from Vessel Project before. These are not people that I've known for a really long time, but this is what community does. When you're looking at these larger organizations, these government assistance programs, they're not going to show up for you in your time of need like that. They're not going to be the ones that you can get on the phone and call them and say, I need you to show up. And so that is the essence of mutual aid. But we didn't create this mutual aid system. Depending on your religion, if you look at Jesus Christ, before Jesus taught anything, he made sure people were fed, made sure people had something to drink, made sure people were okay. And that is what mutual aid is. We go into communities, we expect people to go vote. We get upset when people don't go vote. We get upset at the outcome of elections, but not once have we said, has that person eaten today? Does that person have clean water to drink? Does that person have childcare? Does that person have a ride to the polls? Do they even know what's on the ballot? People have other things that are more importance to them than a perpetual election, than trying to determine who might win this election. And even if this person wins this election, are they then going to help my current situation? And that's what mutual aid does. It helps people in the then and now with what they have going on, where they don't have to wait on some savior to come in on a horse to save them. They can get that assistance right then. And I'm so thankful, for my community. And it goes outside of even your immediate community. It's not just the people in Sulphur or Lake Charles. When you build mutual aid networks, it expands across all of these imaginary boundaries and regions that we've placed in this world. I had people reaching out from Japan. Some of the places that you heard where I've spoken, those people have heard me speak and they reached out to me in my time of need during my son's death. And that's what we have to build and foster if we want to ensure that people are truly okay. It's not going to be the government that's going to come in and save us. It's not going to be some system. It's going to be us. And it's not new. Our ancestors did the same thing. I'll end with this. When we even think about gumbo in Louisiana, gumbo is mutual aid. It's one of the original mutual aids. It was a community of people hungry and they didn't have everything they needed for a meal. So each person brought what they had. I get really upset when I hear people talk about gumbo recipes because there is no recipe for gumbo. It's whatever you have to put in that pot to make a meal so that you and your family and your community can eat so that you can survive to go out and fight another day. And that's what mutual aid is for us. And that's why we don't turn anybody away. We'll never turn anybody away. And we'll keep building these connections.
For us, kind of piggyback, for us, empowerment, we have a small support group, and our families are the first to step up even before a disaster strike and say, if you need any supplies, let me know. And they all have my address, so they're like pounding down the door to drop off supplies. Um, Anytime we have community building in our group as well. So it's kind of like Rashida said, just when one of our kids passes, they donate supplies, and they may have gotten supplies from us 10 times before, but it's just that full circle cycle.
Thank you guys. We only have about 5 minutes left in our panel, and so I want to wrap up with one final question. And that is, what advice would you give to someone looking to get more involved in mutual aid efforts in their communities? And Leo, I'm going to tag you first again since you went first last time.
That's fine. That's fine. I would say, and this worked for me, right? It started after the pandemic. I was in a very dark state, and a lot of us right now, I feel like we're in that dark state, right? With everything that's happening, and we just saw what ICE did in Minnesota. So it's for me, it was starting to volunteer. Just get out there, just volunteer, whatever passion, whatever you think you are feeling in your heart, in your gut that you want to do. I mean, I'm just getting a massive amount of people just wanting to do neighborhood community watch, right? Like they want to just do much more, and they're antsy. They're like, I need to do something, right? So just start volunteering in whatever way capacity that you can. Get out there. A lot of people, whenever the snap freeze happened, we got so many people just like, how can I donate food? What can I do? I have so much surplus food. I'm cooking gumbo. I'm cooking red beans and rice. How can I package this? So it's for me, it was just volunteering after, and that was volunteering festival, volunteering for Lafayette Community Fridge, and that's what opened the doors to mutual aid, and then just continuing to do the service that I'm doing now for the impacted communities, but for all our communities because we're all in this together.
Yeah, Leo, thank you for that. For me, in my current grief, I'm realizing so much, but I've always been the type of person who has just tried to do whatever I could to help whoever I can. I mean, I'm a relative of Fannie Lou Hamer. I'm from Ruleville, Mississippi. I grew up, I'm only 41 years old, but I feel like I grew up in all of the things that you all know about history of Mississippi. I feel like it happened in my lifetime because that's how I was raised, with my grandmother ensuring that I knew the history of Mississippi and that we helped people. So I said all that to say that all of us can do something. I am a single mom of 6 children and a grandbaby. And whenever I started the Vessel Project as an organization, I had just lost my house to Hurricane Laura. We were homeless, living in my van, driving back and forth to Houston. And I just wanted to highlight that I wasn't the only person. Seriously, I just was walking the streets with my phone saying that people are now homeless who were not homeless before this storm and they need help. And the mayor was fighting me, saying that we don't have that many homeless people in Lake Charles. These are all people who are coming in, they're undocumented, they just want to work, they're living, sleeping under the bridge because they want to, because they're trying to take advantage of this storm, and they just came in here. These are not our citizens. So I was trying to prove that these are our citizens who are sleeping in tents and sleeping in sleeping bags in their front yard. And it just grew from there. It grew from me asking people, how can I help you? What do you need? And people saying, I just need a pack of diapers. I need somewhere to sleep tonight. My children need food. I need a new tire on my car because we're sleeping in my car. And the people at Walmart said I had to move my car, but my tire is on flat. These are real stories. This is how it started. So we can all do something. You don't have to have a lot to help somebody, but you do have something that you can give, even if it's a listening ear. And the last thing I'll say is I've posted on Facebook before a question of how can you tell someone is a parent if you don't see their children with them? And that question is deeper than just those words. How can you tell a person is hungry if you don't ask them? How can you tell that a person is grieving if they don't talk to you? Talk to people. When you ask, hey, how are you? How are you doing? What do you need? Wait on the answer. Wait on the answer. Ask open-ended questions because you'll find out so much. And a lot of times when people say or express what they need is something deeper, is something more to it. Build relationships, build trust. If you say you're going to show up, show up. Build community, build coalitions. The way that we grow is by showing up for each other. I was very sad this morning. I almost didn't get on here. But if I wouldn't have got on here, I wouldn't have met you all. New people that I've never met. You've probably never heard of me before, even though in my own world, I think I'm famous and everybody knows me because I'm the only Rochetta in the world. But I don't know you all. And if I wouldn't have got on here today, if I would have let grief overcome me, I would have never met you all to build these new connections and these new networks. So if you can't give anything, you can give your time and you can give your listening ear. And that's my advice on how to continue to build these mutual aid networks. Show up for people. If people invite you to a Zoom, to a panel, to a community meeting, show up because when you have yours, you need people to show up for you.
I just want to say thank you for that, Rochetta. As someone who randomly met Leo a long time ago through a mutual aid type situation and is just running into him again today, that's so true. And it's so true. Thank you for that.
I'll just be quick. Some of the biggest movements start with the smallest steps, just by asking, what do you need? How can I help? And then building your own community if there's not one available for you.
Well, thank you guys so much for being here and sharing your wisdom and helping us build more community in times like this because it's so important. And I think it's really important for people to know that mutual aid doesn't have to be big, large initiatives. It is just as simple as, like Mr. Rochetta said, asking people how they are and waiting for that answer and wanting that genuine answer, right? So mutual aid starts here. Mutual aid starts with you. It starts with your own community. It starts, today. So thank you all for being here. Thank you to our panelists. Once again, you guys were phenomenal. This was a great discussion, and I'm going to bounce it back to Will now.
Let me tell y'all something. Oh, wait. I'm sitting over here and I'm like, first and foremost, Miss Richard, my condolences. My condolences, my prayers, and everything goes out to you. If you need me, you know who I am. I just want to say this conversation was rich. It was everything. Um, and that's the reason why I created this. So you can feel comfortable, so you can get stuff off your chest. Because a lot of times nobody don't get things off their chest. And we just be walking around like everything is okay. This is the moment that you can get that all off your chest. And that's the reason why I created this because this is a this is a room for us. This is not just for no self-advocates. This is only for us. And you can feel comfortable. I'm off script. I'm sorry, but I'm over here not trying to get emotional, but it's amazing what you guys just said. It was amazing. Where am I? I don't know where do I go to?
Great.
Oh,
Now we can talk about it with our breakout group.
so we're going to talk about, I'm so sorry. We're going to go into our next breakout group. In this breakout group, you're going to talk about building community. So what that means is how do you get together with your fellow mate? And you're going to be building some together. So that means get on the same level as y'all building together. What do you want to see at the same thing? What's y'all same mindset? You got 15 minutes to do this. I can't wait to hear this.
Pause for reflection. After hearing this panel, what's going through your mind? In your community, what does helping each other look like? How did the panelists inspire you to take action in your community? What is one way that you can share your skills or resources to support others? Big or small, everything matters. If you were a leader in the disability community, how would you inspire our community to come together as one?
So this part right here, I want to introduce the Louisiana Development Disability Network. And who's going to be taking over that is I want you to understand that these people, the Louisiana Development Disability Network is someone that can support us if we're going through a lot and if we need support and all of that. Those are the ones that can support us. And I'm gonna have our court, oh my God, I literally forgot.
Allie Cohen.
Ellie Coates, who's gonna be taking over this part.
Thanks, Will. Hi, I'm Allie Kowitz. I'm the Director of the Education, Transition, and Community Initiative at Louisiana's USAID, which is a part of the Louisiana DD network. We are the Human Development Center, and I'm going to explain what all of these pieces of the DD network are. So the Developmental Disabilities Assistance and Bill of Rights Act, or shortened the DD Act, is a law that describes the rights of people with developmental disabilities and their families to participate fully in their communities. The goal of the DD Act is to make sure that decisions about people with disabilities are made with their input. So remember that saying, nothing about us without us. Go to the next slide. The DD Act created 3 programs to help people with disabilities: University Centers for Excellence in Developmental Disabilities, or UCEDs, Developmental Disability Councils, which are also known as DD Councils, and Offices of Protection and Advocacy, and we shorten that to PNAs. So this image shows how the DD networks work together to support individuals with disabilities across each state and across the country. So each entity has its own goals, but they all work together with the main goal of supporting individuals with disabilities. So every state has at least one USAID at a university. In Louisiana, our USAID is located at LSU Health in New Orleans, and it's called the Human Development Center. The USAID study how to make lives of people with disabilities better and teaches people who want to work with people who have disabilities the best ways about how to help. They can also help the community to understand the important roles people with disabilities have. DD councils are groups of people who work to change the lives of people with disabilities. It might help by asking questions about how life could be better and what the community could do to help. DD councils also work with other groups of people, like in schools, and works with people with disabilities to help them be better advocates for themselves. And then finally, each state has a protection and advocacy office. In Louisiana, that is Disability Rights Louisiana. This office provides legal help for people with disabilities when they're not treated fairly. And they also watch places like group homes and make sure that everybody is safe and healthy. And all DD network partners work together on different initiatives, and we work across the state. And from individuals to systems, the Human Development Center builds capacity and inspires change throughout the lifespan to support people with disabilities to participate fully in all aspects of the community. HDC supports meaningful participation of people with disabilities in age-appropriate settings and activities. We know that with individualized activity and setting specific adaptations and accommodations and supports, everybody can participate in all aspects of community life. And finally, this is just a quick broad overview of our main initiatives at HDC. We have the Early Childhood Initiatives, which works with the Early Head Start grant, inclusive practices in early childhood settings, and our Early Learning Center here at HDC. Our Education Transition and Community Initiative is comprised of the LaSard Project, which provides professional development and coaching for teachers across the state of Louisiana. The Louisiana Deaf Blind Project for children and youth, again, another statewide initiative. We have our Paycheck Transition Program, the Fetal Alcohol Spectrum Disorders, or FASD initiative, Employment First Training, and the WIPA program, which helps with benefits planning. And then finally, we offer long-term training through our LEND program and clinics.
Okay. I guess it's my turn. Thank you, Allie. Good morning, everyone, or almost afternoon. My name is Ebony Haven, and I'm the Executive Director of the Louisiana Developmental Disabilities Council. First, I want to just say thank you to LSU and Will Johnson for putting together this wonderful summit and having the DD Council to take part in today's summit as well. So I'm super excited to be a part of this wonderful event, and I'm super excited just to reintroduce the DD Council to everyone. Now, I know there are a lot of people who may not have ever heard of the DD Council, or some may have heard of the DD Council, but you're just not sure exactly what we do. So I'm here to make sure that you leave the summit knowing just who we are and what we do. So the Developmental Disabilities Councils were founded in 1970 as a result of the passage of the DD Act that Allie has already mentioned. And specifically, the Louisiana Council was established in 1971. There is a DD council in every state and territory, and every council is a little bit different. Every council differs in the size, meaning the amount of people that sit on their council. Every council differs in the amount of federal funding that they receive. Every council is different in their mission and their goals and objectives that they have for their state plans. So Louisiana Council, it has 28 members on their council, all who are governor appointed, and they serve 4-year terms. All of our members are volunteers. And the members consist of a combination of individuals with developmental disabilities, parents and immediate relatives of those with developmental disabilities, and various agency representatives. So we have multiple state agencies that are represented on our council, and they're responsible for administering many of the services that make up Louisiana's service delivery system. Some of the agencies are mandated to be included on the council, and then per the DD Act, and then some of them the council has just elected to include. So why were the councils included? Or in other words, what is the council's purpose? Well, that actually depends on the council's mission. And the mission of the Louisiana Developmental Disabilities Council is to help people with intellectual and developmental disabilities make their own choices, which is sometimes called self-determination, or which is called self-determination. Also to live independently, if that's their choice. Be more productive through working with their peers in jobs of their choice and making competitive wages, and also being included in all aspects of community life. So that's who the council is, but what does the council do? So let's find out what we do. What the council does aligns up exactly with their mission. The council's work centers around making sure people with intellectual and developmental disabilities can go to school, can get jobs that they want, and live in the community with their peers, with the services and supports that they need in order to do those things. So how does the council do this? What do they work on? Every council across the country has to develop a 5-year plan that will address the changes that are needed to the service delivery system in their state or territory to make things better for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities and their families. So council plans focus on areas including things like health, housing, transportation, formal and informal supports, education, and employment. And right now, all councils are on the last year of their current 5-year plan. Our new plan, our new 5-year plan actually starts in 2027 and it goes to 2031. And this plan will have brand new goals, brand new objectives that the council wants to focus on. So, how does the council meet those goals that are in their 5-year plan? Well, the federal government mandates every council to do three things. That's advocacy, building capacity, and changing systems. So, advocacy is simply supporting a cause and speaking out for that cause. And the council advocates through their grassroots advocacy network or organization, and it's called LACAN. The second thing I said was building capacity. Building capacity can be done in many different ways through training, providing information, or even raising public awareness. A great example of an initiative that the council funds every year to build capacity of individuals and families to advocate for systems change is a program called Partners in Policymaking. We also build capacity through LACAN as well. So if you would like to hear more about these great initiatives, Partners in Policymaking and LACAN, I encourage you guys to come back next Friday, January 16th, because our LACAN leaders and our Partners in Policymaking coordinator will be participating in next week's summit, and they'll be able to give you a lot more great details about those initiatives that the council funds every year. And then lastly, the last thing that they're mandated to do is systems change. And when we think about systems change, it just refers to the transformation or significant improvement of a system that also helps with the inclusion of people with intellectual and developmental disabilities in all aspects of life. So remember, I mentioned that our council members include state agency reps. So our council members work together to make sure that the service delivery system here in Louisiana is better and that it works for everyone, that everyone has the supports and services that they need. So that is the Louisiana Developmental Disabilities Council in a nutshell, my elevator speech. I hope you guys know just a little bit about us, a little bit more about us if you didn't already. So I'm happy to answer any questions if there are any afterwards.
Okay. There are no questions. So good afternoon. I'm Tori Rocco with Disability Rights Louisiana. I am the Director of Public Policy and Community Engagement. And we've been introduced already as part of Ebony's and the prior presentation, but we are the protection and advocacy agency for the state of Louisiana. We're one of the three parts of the system. I guess we're going into the slides now. Sure. Okay, let's go to the slides. So we were founded in 1977 as Louisiana's protection and advocacy agency. And our mission is to protect, advocate, and empower individuals with disabilities. We were created just like the other parts of the network with the Developmental Disabilities Act back in the 70s. And we were designated by the state. And that's how our system works. Way back in the 1970s, when this system was created, states had the option of either designating a nonprofit entity to serve as the protection and advocacy agency for the state, or they had the option of creating a state agency, an actual direct state agency, and most chose to have a nonprofit. And there are only a few of us that are actually state agencies. Like in Alabama, they are a state agency that operates through the law school of the University of Alabama in Tuscaloosa. which is fairly unusual. So our organization has a staff of about 50 people or a little fewer than 50 people, and we assist people with disabilities across the state. We have an office in our main office in New Orleans and a satellite office in Lafayette right now, but we have staff throughout the state. Our attorneys, we have several, they all work in New Orleans, but we also run an ombudsman program that monitors conditions in facilities and home and community-based services. Our program, the ombudsman program that monitors conditions throughout the state, in facilities, operates statewide, and we have a program that also monitors conditions for people that are in home and community-based services. That only operates in the New Orleans and Baton Rouge areas because that's just what we have funding for right now. We'd love to expand that, but that's a long-term project. Our areas of focus include rights protection, home and community-based services, accessibility, autonomy, self-determination, employment, voting, advocacy for older people, disaster resilience, affordable, accessible housing, benefits protection, education, and assistive technology. And I think that's just an intro to the system. I have a whole presentation coming up right now. So perfect, thank you. Okay, so what today's about is about knowing your rights and knowing that you are not alone. We are going to talk about the laws that exist to protect people with disabilities and how they affect everyday life here in Louisiana. We'll start with the P&A system, which we already kind of just did, and our organization, and then discuss the Americans with Disabilities Act, and we'll also talk about the Olmstead decision, the ADA Amendments Act of 2008, and the new healthcare access rule. The goal here is just to understand what protections you have and where to go when something is not right. So the impetus for our system was actually, oddly, an expose, a news story done by the reporter Geraldo Rivera back in 1972. He investigated a facility in New York called Willowbrook, where folks with developmental disabilities lived, and they were kept in horrific conditions. Apparently what happened is a doctor who was leaving that facility, just no longer going to work there, gave Geraldo Rivera the keys, and Geraldo got in there with a camera, man, and it just was a terrible, terrible thing that he saw, and a lot of awful treatment of people with disabilities. In response, Congress actually acted, which it doesn't always do. So it passed the Developmental Disabilities Assistance Bill and Bill of Rights Act, and that created the system that you just heard about with the three entities that were just explained to you. We have somebody in our national organization who describes us as the mistake that Congress will never make again, because they actually did something and they created a system that actually has some authority to do something about problems, and they aren't always happy that we have authority to do things, but we do have authority, and it's good to have because we actually can affect change. So in the 1980s to present, Congress expanded the system's authority and created the new P&A programs to address the needs of different disability groups, including those with mental illness, traumatic brain injuries, and assistive technology needs. So the system really was created because people with disabilities were harmed, neglected, and abused, especially in institutions. And after the public learned about what happened in Willowbrook, there was enough outrage that people actually wanted to act. And over time, our system has expanded to actually have more authority, more functions. So what started primarily to assist people with developmental disabilities has expanded into a system that represents and advocates for people with all types of disabilities. For example, if you or a loved one are being mistreated in a nursing home, a group home, a hospital, or a jail, our system exists because situations like that were ignored for too long in the past. So, as I said earlier, DRLA, we were established in 1977 and designated by the state of Louisiana to serve the function as the state's protection and advocacy system. And our mission is to protect and advocate for the human and legal rights of people with disabilities of all ages across our state. and we work to empower the disability community to live an integrated life free from abuse and neglect and exploitation. We have 50 or a little fewer than 50 people, and as I said, we have offices in New Orleans and Lafayette right now. And I've already listed off our numerous areas of advocacy. And the idea is that we are here to help you with, well, we're here to advocate for civil rights, but also for if you're having trouble getting services. For example, if you're having trouble getting Medicaid services or were denied a reasonable accommodation or feel like your voting access was limited or impeded in some way, we are a place that you can call, ask questions, and get help. And we do have a staff of several attorneys who work on behalf of individual people and also take on broader systemic litigation. And we have a staff, as I said, of ombudsmen who actually monitor conditions in facilities and home and community-based services throughout the state. So the ADA bans discrimination based on disability and requires public accommodations to be accessible. The ADA protects people who have a physical or mental impairment that substantially limits one or more major life activities, such as walking, talking, hearing, seeing, or learning. People who have a history or record of such an impairment, such as cancer that is in remission, or people who are perceived by others as having such an impairment, such as a person who has scars from a severe burn. So the ADA is a civil rights law. It says people with disabilities have the right to participate fully in public life. This includes jobs, schools, healthcare, transportation, government services, and businesses open to the public. Disability under the ADA includes physical and mental impairments that affect one or more major life activities such as walking, seeing, learning, thinking, or communicating. And the ADA exists because discrimination has existed against people with disabilities for a long, long time. The ADA, Title I, Employment. So under this title, there cannot be any discrimination in any aspect of employment, hiring, firing, pay, job assignment, promotions, layoffs, and trainings. Discrimination occurs when a qualified individual is treated unfavorably because they have a disability. Employers with 15 or more employees must provide reasonable accommodations unless it causes an undue hardship to the employer. Employers can't ask you about your disability before offering you a job, and medical information must stay private. Reasonable accommodations include things like flexible schedules, interpreters, screen readers, job restructuring, or changes to the workspace. So this title protects people in the workplace, of course. It says that employers must provide reasonable accommodations unless doing so would cause serious difficulty or expense. And employers, as we said, cannot ask about your disability before offering you a job, and your medical information must stay private. And an example would be if you need a modified schedule because of fatigue, medical appointments, or medications, or side effects of medications, your employer can't simply say no without considering the accommodation. ADA Title II, Public Entities. Title II says that all state and local governments must ensure that people with disabilities have equal access to everything they offer. Public spaces, programs, and services must be accessible in both physical and digital ways. Governments must provide effective communication, including interpreters, accessible documents, captioning, or assistive listening devices. Public transportation must be accessible too. Policies that exclude disabled people must be modified unless doing so would fundamentally change the service. Title II is also enforced by the U.S. Department of Justice and the U.S. Department of Transportation. So an example of this is that if you go to vote and the polling place is inaccessible or you cannot access a city website to apply for services, Title II is what gives you the right or protects your right to equal access. ADA Title III, Public Accommodations. Title III requires businesses and nonprofits, restaurants, hotels, stores, banks, etc., to be accessible to people with disabilities. Businesses must remove barriers when it is readily achievable, which means basically easy to do so without too much difficulty or cost. New construction must be built fully accessible from the start. Businesses must provide reasonable modifications to policies, like allowing a service animal or offering assistance filling out forms. They must also provide effective communication, like captioning, accessible websites, and alternative formats. And Title III is enforced by the DOJ. So places like doctors' offices, hotels, gyms, etc., must remove barriers when it is reasonable to do so, and must adjust policies when needed, such as allowing service animals or offering help with forms. Communications access matters here too, including accessible websites. Example, if a doctor's office refuses to let your service animal enter or tells you to bring your own interpreter, that's likely a Title III issue. ADA, Title IV, telecommunications. Title IV requires telephone and internet companies to provide nationwide relay services so that deaf, hard of hearing, deaf-blind, and speech-disabled people can communicate over the phone. It establishes telecommunications relay services, including TTY, which for those of you who aren't 1,000 years old, stands for teletypewriter, video relay services, and text relay. Requires TV broadcasts to include closed captioning in most federally funded public service announcements. Also ensures that people with disabilities have functionally equivalent access to communication. It is enforced by the FCC. An example of this is that if you rely on captioned calls or video relay services to schedule appointments or contact emergency services, Title IV is what makes those services legally required. ADA Title V, miscellaneous provisions. Title V is what ties the ADA together. It covers legal protections, prevents retaliation, clarifies how the ADA interacts with other laws, and protects people who speak up. It protects people from retaliation for asserting their ADA rights. It clarifies that the ADA doesn't cancel or weaken other disability rights laws. The ADA only adds to them. It addresses attorney fees, technical assistance, and state immunity. And it also defines terms like disability. The definition has been expanded and strengthened by the ADA Amendments Act of 2008. And an example of this would be if you request an accommodation at work or school and suddenly face discipline, threats, or mistreatment because you asked, Title V protects you from retaliation. Olmsted versus LC. It is a very important civil rights case that was heard by the U.S. Supreme Court. This case was brought by Lois Curtis and Elaine Wilson, two women with mental illness and developmental disabilities who were confined to a Georgia state psychiatric hospital despite their doctors stating that they were ready for community-based care. A person must be provided with community-based services if the state's treatment professionals determine it is appropriate, if the person does not object to the community placement, and the placement can be reasonably accommodated by the state. So basically, the Supreme Court ruled that unnecessary institutionalization is discrimination, and states must provide community-based services when professionals say it is appropriate, the person wants it, and the state can reasonably provide it. If you want to live in your own home or with family but are told a nursing facility is your only option, Olmsted supports your right to try and actually live in your home and get community-based services, get home community-based services. The ADA Amendments Act of 2008. The ADA restored and expanded the original intent of the ADA by making it much easier for people to qualify as disabled and receive protections. It broadened the definition of disability. It made it easier to prove the definition, to prove disability by focusing on discrimination, not exactly strict definitions of what disability is. It changed the law so that medication, devices, treatment, or supports cannot be used to say someone isn't disabled, meaning that if someone is actually receiving treatment and it's improving their condition, then somebody else can't say, no, you're not disabled now because you're actually receiving some kind of effective treatment. It includes episodic and intermittent conditions as disabilities, and it expanded major life activities in the definition of disabilities to include everyday activities like reading, thinking, and communicating, and bodily functions. And also increased the protection of what is regarded, basically stronger regarded as protection. And what that basically means, that last point, is that It protects individuals who are treated as if they have a disability, even if they don't technically meet the definition, by prohibiting discrimination based on an employer's perception that somebody has a disability. The key is that it prevents discriminatory actions such as firing or not hiring somebody just because an employer thinks you have a disability when you don't. And lastly, the new ADA rules on accessible medical diagnostic equipment. What public health care facilities must do? They must use accessible medical equipment, exam tables, weight scales, imaging equipment, dental chairs, etc. They must train staff to safely assist patients and use accessible features. Keep accessible equipment working and repair it promptly. Make sure patients with disabilities can receive the same exams and tests as everyone else. Deadlines. As of October 8th, 2024, any new medical equipment purchased must be accessible. Starting this year in August, every facility must have at least one height-adjustable accessible exam table, at least one wheelchair accessible weight scale, and ongoing staff have to be continuously trained with these things. Equipment must be maintained and usable at all times, and equal access to diagnostic services must be ensured every day. An example might be if you've ever had to go into a doctor's office in your wheelchair, if you use one without an accessible scale or examined in an unsafe way, these rules stop that from happening and ensure you receive the same quality of care as everyone else. And that is all the information I have. The rest are just citations. Any questions?
Hey, Troy, great presentation.
Thanks.
Quick question. So, what would you tell a self-advocate like who lost their Medicaid? How would you what are the steps to try to get it back?
To try to get it back, if you were a self-advocate and you lost your Medicaid, I would first probably contact my organization and ask for help with from one of our staff attorneys or ombudsman to see what we can do. I mean, you could try to contact the State Department of Health first. I assume you'd probably do that already. If somebody said your Medicaid's gone, you probably contact them first. So somebody's probably already done that. And if you've done that and you've gotten nowhere, you would contact your P&A. You'd contact my organization to see if we can help.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you.
That's it.
Okay.
Yeah.
But so Jackie asked earlier, is it legal for polling places to not be accessible?
No, not at all. Polling places have to be accessible under the Help American Vote Act, and there are specific rules that they have to comply with. There is actually a checklist that we use. We have a grant where we go and inspect polling places. We can always use more people to do it, but usually we use our own staff, and sometimes we'll partner with other organizations. And we use actually an ADA checklist of that's probably several years old now. But the polling places have to have appropriate ramps. They have to have appropriate entrances. Hallways have to be navigable for people with wheelchairs and not just wide enough. Like people have to be able to turn a wheelchair in a hallway. They have to make sure their accessible entrances are marked properly, and that's frankly one of the most common violations we see at polling places, like just a signage, which in a way is a good thing because if we send somebody out to a polling place on election day and they lack appropriate signage, as long as the folks at the polling place are willing to be reasonable, that's something that can be pretty easily fixed on that day. But other things like, if there's just a ramp that is just absolutely non-compliant with the ADA, that needs like a physical fix. That's a problem that we have to work on for months and years later. But polling places do have to be accessible. They also have to have accessible voting machines too. So not just in physical accessibility, the voting machines need to be accessible too. Louisiana has been struggling with that for several years. I've been here for going on 7 years now, and I think they were considering buying new voting machines before I got here. We worked with the previous Secretary of State a fair bit on accessible voting machines as they were trying to figure out what to choose, and it's just still they have not chosen them. So ironically, the voting machines they have right now, even though they're old, the type they are, just the basic electronic kind, are among the more accessible voting machines. But a lot of those aren't being. But also, if you've used the voting machines in a polling place, you've seen how they're kind of blurry and fuzzy. Like, I mean, they're a little hard to read sometimes, even for me with my eyes. They do need to be upgraded. And we've, in recent years, tried to work with the Secretary of State and the legislature to um, ask them to use the most accessible voting machines that will be available given what manufacturers are going to be making now. So that's a long answer to a short question, which was no, they cannot make them inaccessible. They have to be accessible. And if you encounter an inaccessible polling place, we are also the people to call because we have a program to try and make polling places accessible.
Great. And I just had a fresh question in the chat. Laura asked if you could speak at all about the status of the Louisiana proposed legislation that Dom Kelly spoke about that proposed to criminalize assistance to voting. Do you know anything about that?
So I don't know about the proposed. I know about what happened in the last couple of years. We briefly did file a lawsuit against recent changes to make it to actually restrict assistance in voting. We withdrew that lawsuit because we actually weren't able to find plaintiffs in the state to go along with it. So without any plaintiffs, we needed to actually withdraw the lawsuit. But it was the session before last when Louisiana did restrict who can provide assistance in voting and how they can do it. We did actually start to litigate. Unfortunately, we couldn't find plaintiffs on that. And if there is a new proposal that I haven't seen yet, I please somebody send it to me because that'll be something I'll be working on this coming year in the legislature.
I had another question from earlier that you might be able to help with. Leo asked, are there resources available to our impacted and immigrant communities who may not be here legally, but still need services to be met? And if so, what is the best way to get that information out there to those who need it?
Generally, yes. I don't. I have to double check, but I don't know of any restrictions on our providing service to anybody who is in the country with a uncertain immigration status. I don't know if we have any restrictions on that. I would, to be 100% sure, have to check all the terms of our grants. And we have a fairly complicated funding structure with our grants. We are mostly federally funded. We have some state funding, and all of our grants have different terms and language and restrictions on things we can do. For example, our mental health grant heavily restricts our ability to do anything that involves marijuana. So we can't go anywhere near that kind of stuff. I would need to basically look over the terms of every single one of our grants and all the laws we created to give you a definitive answer on that. I don't know of any offhand, but I'm a little uncomfortable giving an answer on that. But in terms of getting out information, our website, our social media, let people know about us. If we start getting calls from folks who have an uncertain immigration status, we will start looking into what our options are for helping.
Great, thank you. And then I had just one last question I was curious about was, are there like common issues that you guys help people with that people may not be aware of, or you want more people to be aware of?
Common issues could be a lot of things. We have attorneys who work on education issues. So one of the things they do a lot of is help people with their IEPs. So sometimes getting the right IEP or having schools actually follow the IEP that they create. We have handled we've handled in the past cases trying to make sure people had enough skilled nursing services in their homes, and that's an ongoing problem in part because states don't always want to do what they need to do, and also states also have in their defense have a hard time finding the staff to do this stuff. So getting people care in their homes, our attorneys have worked on that. Our attorneys have worked on people's IEPs. That's very common. A lot of the work I do in public policy tries to involve not having people unnecessarily institutionalized in nursing homes. So we do help people of all ages with all kinds of disabilities. We've been working to create more waiver slots with partner organizations like the ARC of Louisiana and AARP. We've done a lot of work with them. Every year we try and create more waiver slots and to try and get people who don't need to be in a nursing home out of the nursing homes and into HCBS. And that's always a struggle because we're trying to get people out, and Louisiana is a little too not a little. It's too heavily weighted towards people being institutionalized at that age. So that's a common thing we do. So I'm trying to get more people out of institutions into HCBS, IEPs, and things like that for our attorneys, and making sure when people are in HCBS, they are getting the Medicaid services they need.
Awesome. Well, thank you again so much, Tori. I learned so much. Is there like a contact info that you want to drop one last time?
Let me see, of course. So,
It's on your slide, so I could
so
probably
find this
drop it
slide
for
that
you.
has that. There we go. There's a
Yes.
slide that has all that.
Great, thank you. All right. Well, again, thank you, Tori. I'll drop the information in the chat, everyone, and I'm gonna take it back over to Will.
Thank you again, Troy, for that amazing presentation. I learned a lot. I learned a lot, and I'm grateful for this PowerPoint. So now, as you may know, this is the end of the day, uh, day one. I want to thank you. I don't know how to say it, but in words, I just want to say thank you all for being here with us. I hope you took some great information with you that you can share with your community. Yeah, we're at the end. So we will see you guys next Friday on January 16th, same place, same time. Our keynote speaker is Rebecca Coley, who will show us where have we been and where are we going. So if you don't want to, if you want to come back and know what we're going to be talking about, come back next week. Always remember, we're in this together. So speak up, stand up. Have a good one. See you guys next week.